Take full responsibility for what happens to you. It's one of the highest forms of human maturity, accepting full responsibility. It's the day you know you've passed from childhood to adulthood, the day you accept full responsibility. And another note, learn to reap in the fall without apology. Without apology if you do well, and without complaint if you don't. That's maturity. I used to have that long list of reasons why I wasn't doing well. To explain. You got to explain, right? Otherwise, you're going to look bad. I used to have this funny list called Reasons for Not Looking Good. I used to blame the government. I mean, you can believe that or not. It was at the top of my list. I had a lecture second to none. The government. That was on my list. I used to blame taxes. Look what you got left after they take everything. And they expect you to do well. That was on my list there. Prices, that one's easy, right? You walk into the supermarket with $20, come out with a little half bag. So I had that on my list. I used to blame the weather. I blamed the traffic. I used to blame my car. I blamed the manufacturers. I used to blame the company. I blamed company policy. I used to blame the training program. I blamed my negative relatives. They were always putting me down. I blame my cynical neighbors. They're just selfish, looking out for themselves. Won't loan you money? They were on my list. I used to blame the economy. I blamed the community. That's a pretty good list for not doing well, isn't it? I thought it was good. I'll never forget one day. Mr. Schoaf is very kind, but he was also very blunt. And this was no exception. And I'm glad he was blunt. There's a lot of things I'd have missed if he hadn't have been blunt. One day, with sort of a curious look on his face, he said, "Jim, just out of curiosity, tell me, how come you haven't done well up until now?" Excellent question. I thought, well, so I won't look too bad, I'll go through my list. And this list I just gave you, I put that on him. And he was very patient. He let me go through the whole thing, the government, the weather. I went through this whole thing. When I finished, he looked my list over very carefully. He said, "Mr. Rohn, big problem with your list. You ain't on it." How brilliant. When I went to work for him a few months later, I learned very quickly to tear up my list, reasons for not doing well, and I threw it away. And I got me a fresh piece of paper. And I put one word on it. Me. There's a Black Heritage spiritual that says it's not my mother nor my father, nor my brother nor my sister, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. See, I used to blame everything outside. And then let me give you a little philosophy that helped turn my life around. For your notes, here it is. It's not what happens that determines the quality or the quantity of your life. It's not what happens. And the reason is because what happens to about everybody. No different. The sun went down on all of us last night. A common event, a happening. And I found out that the same things can happen to two different people. One gets rich and one stays poor. Why is that? It's because it's not what happens, but rather it's what you do that changes everything. So that's a key phrase. It's not what happens, it's what you do. What happens is about the same. You might put that in parentheses here. Same. What people do, that's what's different. Anything can happen, right? Everything can happen. I've heard all the stories. I've been one of the stories. Hey, we could all tell stories all night long, right? Happenings. Anything can happen. Have you heard of Murphy's Laws? Anybody here heard of Murphy's Laws? Okay, most of you have. Murph had these laws. One of them was, if anything can go wrong, it will. That's one of Murphy's Laws. He was not one of the great positive speakers of the day. But anyway, it's still true though, right? Anything can go wrong, everything can go wrong. For sure. I've fallen out of the sky so many times. Once to the tune of a couple of million. Devastating. Took me a while to survive that one. Now, it wasn't all that much, but it was all I had. Right? I mean, that's when it's much, right? When it's all you got. If you got 3, 2 go, you got 1 left, you ain't looking that bad. But when it all goes, has anybody been there when it all went? Anybody? Come on, rest of you liars. Go ahead. Hey, we've all been there, right? When it all went. Of course, it used to be a long time ago, right? When you ran out of money, got to 0, you were all through. Heck, now you can whistle right on by 0, right? I mean, they will bury you. That's what they will do. But see, those are the happenings, right? Everything can happen. Anything can happen. But it's not the happenings. It's what you do about it. Somebody says, yeah, but you don't understand the disappointments I've had. Come on. Everybody's had their share. Disappointments are not special gifts reserved for the poor. Everybody has them. The difference is what you do about it. It's not the weather. I used to blame the weather, and I discovered it rains on the rich. So see, that won't help. 2 men wake up one morning, there's a rainstorm on. One of them looks out his window, sees the rainstorm, and he says, wow, what a storm. With weather like this, they can't expect you to go out and make sales. He stays home. Same morning, the other guy looks out his window, sees the same storm, says, wow, what a storm. But he says, you know what, with weather like this, what a great day to go out and make sales. Most everybody will probably be home, especially the salesman. See, that's the difference in how your life works out. It's not what happens, it's what you do. So here's one of the key questions of the evening. Starting tomorrow, what are you going to do that'll make a change in your life's direction? Good question. What are you going to do starting tomorrow that'll make a difference? Now, see, if you don't do something starting tomorrow that'll make a difference, guess what? It's going to be the same. And see, that way you can guess what the next 5 years are going to be like. Look at the last 5. Because the next 5 are going to be like the last 5 unless you, major key, tomorrow, change it all. Or change a little, or change something, or don't change. It's choice time. You can do whatever you want. But it's nice to know any day you wish you can change your whole life. What can you do starting tomorrow that'll make a difference? Good question. What can you do with economic chaos, massive disappointment? What can you do with a broken heart? What can you do when it won't work? Good question.
All right. How we doing, everybody? If you can hear me, throw a 1 in the chat for me, just so we can make sure you guys can hear me loud and clear. Beautiful. Thank you, Tony. Thank you guys for hopping on today. I want to thank Ty for posting my call as well. That was awesome. I really appreciate the support. And I'm glad to be back on Mindset again. We had a little break from last week, about 2 weeks break, but that's okay. We're going to get right back into it, and we ended up nobody missed anything last week because now we'll go through the same topic. So it's good stuff. Thank you. Yeah, this is my old work shirt. It's 5 All Black, which is a Brazilian grill. I worked there for like 3 years in Montana. and they gave us these really soft shirts. Oh, they're so nice. Probably the nicest work shirt I was ever given. Cool. Well, today we're gonna go over our topic for today is the 5 rules of gold. And I want to say I got this lesson from, let's see. Yeah, I think it's from the 5 a.m. club. A lot of the lessons that I find value from and that really speak to me are from the 5 a.m. club. So if you haven't read that book, it's definitely an amazing book to read. It really breaks down why it's so important for us to wake up before the sun, or at least before other people in your house wake up, right? So the whole benefits from waking up at 5 a.m. is that the rest of the world is still quiet, or still asleep, still quiet. The energy is so calm, and it makes it so much easier for us to get focused and start our day with optimum focus, so that our distractions end up getting less and less the more we do it, right? So if we start our day with distractions, like looking at our phones, our whole day is going to be uh, basically revolved around distractions. We're going to have like that ADHD mindset where, we're looking at our phone, then we're looking at a trade, then we're trying to read a book, then we're getting hungry, then we're going to get some water, then we're going to the bathroom, and then we're going all over the place because we started our day with our phone distracting ourselves, right? So that is the first rule of gold, is that an addiction to distraction is the end of your creative production. Empire makers and history creators take 1 hour for themselves, but before dawn, in the serenity that lies beyond the clutches of complexity, to prepare themselves for a world-class day. So that basically just means that if you want to have a day without distraction, it's important to start that day, that first hour of your day. Like if you can't get up at 5 a.m. right away, that's okay. I honestly have lately been waking up later because I found that I trade a lot better when I wake up later and trade later than 9:30, and it ended up working in my schedule a little bit better. And I was waking up at like 4:44 a lot of the time, and it ended up, my training wasn't getting any better. The extra work I was putting in wasn't helping. So it's not for everybody, right? Like for me, it just wasn't really working for me as well. So I kind of changed up my schedule a little bit, and it really, really helped. Hey, Gogo, thanks for hopping on. But choose what works for you, right? If you can wake up at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., if as long as you have that first hour of your day to yourself so that you can truly dive into focus, it'll really, really help you set yourself up for empire making days. It'd be so, so helpful for you to make sure that you don't start your day with distractions. And I've said this before, and I'll say it probably on every single call, just because there's you could never say it too many times, right? And that is that the first 30 minutes of your day and the last 30 minutes of your day are the most pivotal moments in your life, in your daily action, that can either set yourself up for success and focus and deliberate intention, focusing on your goals, or you can not utilize those times, and then you'll find yourself distracted all day long, all day long, all day long. And then if you don't do it right before you go to sleep, you find yourself dreaming about the Netflix episode that you watched, or you're dreaming about the stresses in your life because you're not deliberately, intentionally focusing on your goals before you fall asleep, or at least focusing on some sort of gratitude or some sort of positive thing that happened that day, right? And so starting our day with positivity and focus, and then ending our day with positivity and focus, and then slipping in some gratitude at those times as well, is really what's going to flip the script. It's really going to change everything for you. And that's really what happened for me, was like, and everybody's pretty much had their time where they are so like addicted to their phone that they just like sit on Snapchat all day. They're watching stories on Instagram. They're going to Facebook for memes. They're doing all this stuff. And yes, it's making them happy. It's making them smile, but it is instant gratification for a long-term problem, right? Instead of instant, intentional action for a later reward that comes after, because you're starting a good habit. And the way I just said that didn't even make sense to me. So I'm going to say that again. So basically, it's it either sets you up or it basically screws you. And so what you want to do is not, change that habit, right? For me, I was waking up and I was, going to Instagram, checking my messages, checking my texts. When I had a relationship, it was always like I'd be texting her right before I fell asleep and right when I woke up. So then all of my mind and all of my focus is on like relationships and the stresses that come with that. And then, do I like this girl? Do I not like this girl? And then I'm so focused on that as opposed to my own self and my own personal development and my own life, that it ends up screwing my days. So I had to like tell her, I was like, hey, I love saying goodnight to you, but I'm going to say goodnight to you like an hour before I go to sleep. And I'm not going to respond to your good morning text until like after I've done my morning routine, because this is what's the most important thing for me to do the first day, like the beginning of my day, so that I could actually set myself up for success. And, not everybody's going to take that the right way, right? So tread lightly, okay? Especially if you have a very emotional partner, like whoever it is, right? Hold on one second. I gotta get this real quick. Hey, Dad, I'm on my call. You gotta text me, okay? All right. Okay. So the best thing for you to do to get rid of that addiction to distraction would be to start your day without your phone. Okay. So I don't even set an alarm anymore, because I wake up at 5 a.m. regardless. So at 5 a.m. when I wake up, I decide whether or not I want to lay in bed and meditate for a couple hours and just kind of get into that like half sleep state. And that's, if you guys have that time in the morning, it has changed everything for me. Like waking up at 5 a.m., going to the bathroom, drinking some water, and then I'll go back in bed. And since I'm not really tired enough to fall asleep, but I am tired enough to lay there in like a half sleep state, it allows me to get into that flow state right in the morning. And then like sometimes it'll last an hour, sometimes it's 3 hours, sometimes it's 30 minutes. But I always wake up that second time, like not really waking up, but becoming aware of my physical reality, right? I feel amazing. It's crazy. Like I don't understand what I do understand, because when you're in that sleepy half sleep state, it's easier to drop into alpha wavelengths, which basically just means high vibrational thought, right? There's like beta, there's theta, there's alpha, but alpha is that state that allows you to get into the flow state where you're so focused on your present moment or your goals or whatever it is that that your body is aligned with your thoughts, and then you feel good because of it, right? And it's just so helpful to understand that and understand the reason why people tell you to put your phone down in the morning, right? So that's the best thing that I could tell you. If you do set an alarm, set your alarm, turn off your alarm, then put your phone aside and do your do your personal work. Do something that you enjoy. Maybe do some reading, some journaling, do that morning routine, right? But it's also really helpful to do something that you love first in the morning, right? It helps me get out of the bed to shower every morning because I sleep with my room at like as cold as physically possible. Sometimes it's like 45 degrees in there when I wake up because I keep the window open. Sometimes a box fan in the window when it's January and 30 degrees outside because I'm a little bit crazy. But but um, but I really love a hot shower in the morning because it really allows me to kind of basically defrost and just feel really good, and it brings in that happiness in the morning, and just it's something that gets me out of bed. It's something that I really enjoy. So find something in your morning routine that you enjoy doing as well. Maybe you do enjoy reading a lot, but that's reading is like a love-hate relationship that I have with it sometimes because when I was a kid, I wasn't very good at reading comprehension, and so now I do love reading, but it's not something that I've loved for a long time, right? But if I chose to do reading in the morning, I enjoy it, but it's not like a treat, right? It's kind of more like a task that I like to do. It's not like that reward that I really actually want, right? So that's rule number one. Um, so addiction to distraction is the end of your creative production, and that's rule number one. Um, the second rule of gold is excuses breed no genius. Just because you haven't installed the early rising habit before doesn't mean you cannot do it now, right? We all have the ability to change. And it's important to know that because we can live like Jim Rohn says that you can live one way for 5 years, um, rip the script, and then live 5 years another entirely different way. And that's kind of this transition that I just made more recently because I was making all these bad decisions. I was distracting myself all the time, watching Netflix, like staying in bed all day when I didn't have work, and just doing terrible things. So terrible things for my body, and it um and but that doesn't mean that I need to do that forever, right? I changed that lifestyle, and now I live a completely different way, and it feels amazing. So know that you can always can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me? Just let me know. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Sweet. So yeah, excuses breeds no genius. And so don't make excuses for yourself, right? Don't be like, oh, I'm not a morning person, right? That's like the worst excuse I've ever heard in my life. I used to say that myself. I was like, no, I'm not a morning person. I like to stay up and go to sleep at 4 a.m. Like, I'm never going to wake up at 5 a.m. Like, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. But now I look back at that, I'm like, dude, what? Like, the only reason you don't like waking up early is because you're not used to it. And as soon as you change it, it becomes easy. Now I love waking up early because now if I wake up at like 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, wow, I just wasted my whole morning, right? Whereas before, I'd wake up at 11 a.m., smoke some weed, go back to sleep for a couple hours. Like it's a completely different mindset, and you can always change. So knowing that you can always change, right? Release your rationalizations and remember that small daily improvements, when done consistently over time, lead to stunning results. And that's why the most important part of that statement is when done consistently over time, right? It's not how long will this take me to get to where I want to go, but how many will it take to get to me where I want to go? And why do I say that, right? Because it's not how long. Doesn't matter, like time doesn't matter if you're not taking daily action, right? Like I could work out today a lot, like for 5 hours, right? But if I don't work out for the next 29 days, this month, I'm not going to lose any weight, right? But if I were to work out a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, a little bit the next day, maybe take the fourth day off and then go back for the last 2 days, right? It's something that you could do but it's just that you need to be consistent. And every single day, it'll be so helpful for us to understand that, and taking the daily action is something that is hard to start, but if you make it easy and desirable, it is something that can be done, right? And this is something, and I'll go over this because I know some of you weren't on the last few calls, and yeah, 11 people on the call, that makes me so stoked. Let's go. That's like the most I've had on these calls, I think, at least since I started YouTube. So thank you guys, thank you. But yeah, so what was I saying? I forget, but basically, when you're starting a new habit, if you're trying to wake up early, don't move from waking up at 8 a.m. to waking up at 5 a.m. Don't do that. Like, that's setting yourself up for failure, right? Because you'll be able to do it today, maybe tomorrow, but after 2 or 3 days, you're going to be like, this is not me. I can't do this. And then you'll end up sleeping in later, and then you lose your sleeping pattern, and it becomes something that becomes a failure because you set yourself up for it. Okay, the best thing to do is to make a slight difference, a slight change, or start something and do it a short amount of time. So the first thing is the 2-minute rule, and I've been over this before, but the best thing to do when you're starting a new habit is to do it for 2 minutes, set a 120-second alarm, and just do it for 2 minutes and then stop. If you're going to read a page, then stop. If you're going to do some push-ups, do a few push-ups and then stop. And just do it every single day for 7 days. And then after those 7 days, you can add more if you'd like. If it feels like you're not doing enough, right? You can start to add more the next week. Maybe do it for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, or maybe do it a little bit longer than that, right? But it's really helpful to start things out and do it for a short amount of time, because the goal is to start the task, complete it in 2 minutes, and then by the end of those 2 minutes, you'll probably still want to do more, but I'm going to urge you to stop. Okay. And it's at least for those first 7 days, because I don't want you to do too much. Because like the first day, maybe you do 2 minutes, next day you do 2 minutes, and then the third day you get so into it that you bang out like an hour worth of reading, right? But then since you did that hour worth of reading, by the end of it, you're kind of like sluggish. You didn't really learn much from the last few pages, and then you have a negative connotation to the habit because you overdid it, right? And that's the biggest thing that can set you up for failure, is doing too much too soon. So take it slow and just do it consistently over time, every single day. Okay. And that's going to be rule number 2. Yeah, 1% a day. Ty says it all the time. 1% a day compounds into like thousands of percents over time, because 1% today, 1% tomorrow, by the end of your week, you're 7% up. So then it's going to be 1% of the 107%, because you went from 100% to 107. And now 1% of 107 is more than 1% of 100. And then you compound like crazy. Like it's insane. As soon as you do like 30 days straight, like you're going to notice your mindset changes, your focus enlightens, your thoughts are so much clearer, right? It's crazy. And then you just never want to stop. And it's so amazing. And how you do that is just the consistency. The amount doesn't matter. The growth doesn't matter. I'm not looking, you're not looking to lose weight in 7 days. If you are, you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay. But if you set yourself up for, I just want to show up for myself, you got it. Like, that's all you need to do. Just show up. That's great. It's that simple. And so that's going to be rule number 2. So rule number 3 is all change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and then gorgeous at the end. And what does that mean? Okay, like all change is hard at first. We know that. Anybody who's tried to start going to the gym after not going like ever, or maybe in the last like year, they know it's so difficult to even just show up. Like when I started working out, the last time I got back into it, like for some reason I like stressed about it. I was like, I don't know what it was about working out that was stressing me out in that moment. It was like the weirdest thing ever. But maybe it was the fact that I was smaller than I usually was. So like I would feel insecure going into the gym because I feel slim and non-muscular. I don't know what it was. It was just ridiculous fantasy stories that I was putting into my mind. I was just like not going. And it took me a longest time to do it. And I was just like, what is wrong with me? Like, I don't like I look at myself and like, this is what? Why are you having these thoughts? And then eventually I got over it. But we'll create these stories in our heads that create these excuses that get us to not do things. When they're just like not even reality. It's just like you're making it up. It's just your imagination. And so anytime you have thoughts like excuses, when you're trying to change something, evaluate what you say to yourself, right? Like say it, think about it, say it to yourself, then say it again and wonder, is this something that I should be telling myself? Is this helping me or is this hurting me? A lot of the times you'll end up like start chuckling at yourself and you're like, that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever thought my entire life. Like, why would I ever think that? Like, that's just insane. You're crazy, Pat. You're crazy. And then it becomes easier, right? Just be conscious of your thoughts, be the watcher of your thoughts. And once you become the watcher of your thoughts, then you can change the way you're thinking. Because if you're just thinking unconsciously, you're just flowing, you're just flowing, you're just flowing, and you're not making any changes because you're just letting it happen, right? You're just kind of moving through life without actual thinking because you're letting your mind do everything for you. But that's not good because a lot of the times it's negative, or a lot of the times it's making excuses. A lot of times you're just making decisions that you would have made if you were actually intentional and conscious of what's going on. And so all change is hard at first because a lot of the times we don't really know what we're doing wrong because we're doing it so habitually. If we do it without thinking, it is unconscious competence. I think that's the right one. But basically, what I'm saying is that you do it without having to think. So once you become aware of those things, then you can start to change. And it's so dope for that to work. Yeah, exactly. Get excited and not have doubt. And that's where the sweet spot comes in, right? We want to make sure that we are doing enough so that we're growing, but not too much so that we end up feeling doubtful of that action or so we don't feel doubtful of our ability to complete that action. Okay, so understanding that change is always going to be hard at first and it's messy in the middle because a lot of the times, like if you start working out by like day 7, your body's going to be so sore that you don't want to go back, right? So it ends up becoming messy because you know you should be doing these things. You know your body wants you to do these things, but then your mind tells you shouldn't. So then that's like the messiness, right? It's our body needing one thing and our mind telling us that we should be doing something else. Um, so everything you now find easy at first, um, easy you first found difficult, right? It's like learning how to walk. Like how many times we probably tried to walk and fell, and we just kept doing it until it was the until factor, right? We weren't like if you have a child, right? You're not, and they're like 1 years old and they're not walking yet or like 2 years old and they're not walking yet. I don't even know how long it takes for them to start walking, but let's say they're a little too old. They should have already been able to walk and they're a little bit behind, right? The parent's not going to be like, oh, I wonder if my kid's going to learn how to walk. I don't know. I wonder if he's going to learn it. I don't know. But like nobody thinks that. It's just like, I wonder how long it's going to be until my kid can walk, right? So apply that to everything in your life, just the until factor. Like, and that's what's best about trading. That's like one of the few reasons why I've stuck with this goal of 100K funded account, was because I just don't accept no. Like, I've seen the possibilities. I know people that have almost $1 million in funded accounts, right? They didn't give up, so why would I? What makes them any better than me? They're not better, they're just more trained. They're just a little bit more knowledgeable because they've been in the space a little bit longer, or they just understand it a little bit more. I just know that I'm going to get there. So I'm just doing it until. So follow that until factor. It can change things so much for you. With consistent practice, getting up with the sun will become your new normal and automatic. And that's me now. Like, I wake up before the sun, probably because I have to go to the bathroom. I got to pee, but 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 it's also just because I spent like a year or 2 years waking up at 5 a.m. So I always wake up around that time, and then I'm always just deciding whether or not I want to lay in bed and meditate, manifest, whether I want to wake up and shower, and that's just like my decision time. But I'm always going to be awake at that time regardless. And half of that is because of the consistency that I did with it, but it's also my assumption, right? I go to sleep assuming that I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and then I do. But if you worry about not waking up at 5 a.m. before you go to sleep, that hinders your chances of actually waking up on time. So always assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And that includes everything. Like, you understanding that you're not a morning person is going to stop you from waking up early. But if you now assume yourself to be a morning person, that's like 10xing your probability of waking up early. Like, it's unreal. And the belief needs to be there. Okay. And that's why I say, if you're waking up at 8 a.m. and you want to wake up earlier, spend, maybe tomorrow, wake up 15 minutes earlier, and then wake up 15 minutes earlier every day until you get to that time. Or wake up 30 minutes earlier today for the next 7 days, and then add another 30 minutes after that, right? Just do whatever works for you, but have those little bit of changes that happen to your day, or make those slight changes to your habits. And that's what's going to make things a little bit easier for you. So that's rule number 3. Rule number 4, and we got 2 more. These ones are a little bit shorter, so we'll run right through. All right. To have the results of the top 5% of producers, to have the results the top 5% of producers have, you must start doing what the 95% of people are unwilling to do. As you start to live like this, the majority will call you crazy. And I'm sure, especially in this space, you've had people call you crazy. Like, it's just going to happen. Remember that being labeled a freak is the price of greatness. Okay. And it always brings me back to this quote where, I forget who said it, but they said, observe the masses and do the opposite. Right. And that quote spoke to me so much, because it's so true. Like, people eat fast food, don't eat fast food. People, eat chips and watch TV every single day. Don't eat chips. Don't watch TV all day. It's these few things that once you become aware that, once like, all right, everybody does this, now I know I shouldn't be doing this, right? Like, people in college, they drink almost every night. Don't do that. I did that. And I made it out. I ended up being okay. But, you understand what I'm saying, where it's like, just, anytime you decide whether or not you're going to do something, think about whether or not you believe that the top 5% would do it. And if they wouldn't, don't do it. or just do it less amount of time. And that's where the slight changes come into effect, right? If you start evaluating yourself and being like, oh, I eat too much junk food, I do this, I do that, and then you try and cut everything out at once, maybe you're eating pizza and microwave dinners and you're going to fast food every day. You don't want to just cut out cold turkey. Okay. What I would suggest is, if you're doing something 7 days a week, switch it to 6 days and then 5 and then 4, or just, maybe cut one thing out every week, right? Where it's like, let's say you're eating healthy, you're drinking, you're smoking cigarettes, you're not working out, right? Don't try and change all 5 of those things at once. Change one thing, or just change everything a little bit, right? And that's really where that sweet spot comes in. And there's a sweet spot for growth, and there's a sweet spot for cutting out all the bad things that you do. So find your own sweet spot. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, okay? And so make sure you understand that and apply it the way you feel is the right way, okay? Whatever makes you feel good, that's what you should do. But understand that immediate gratification is not really going to make you feel good in the future. So also, you don't always want to do what makes you feel good, but what makes you feel good and what will help you feel good over time as well. Because delayed gratification is a lot of the time better and more what's the word? More beneficial to your growth than a short-term gratification. So understanding that and just evaluate everything you do, think, and say. And it's easier to say that than to think than to actually do it. But try it today, right? Every thought that you have, evaluate it. Be very intentional with your thoughts. And that's really going to help you figure out what's right, what's working, what's not working, and then how to change it. And if you guys have any questions as to how, what, why to do these things, if you need suggestions, if you need advice, feel free to message me on Discord. I got you. I love helping people. So if you want the results the top 5 have, then you got to be willing to do what those 95% of people won't do. One thing of that is waking up early. Other things is reading as opposed to watching Netflix, working out as opposed to eating chips, right? So making sure that you are focusing on becoming that top 5% is really, really going to help. And that brings us to our last rule. Rule number 5. When you feel like surrendering, continue. Triumph loves the relentless. The biggest quote that I remember from this that I'm reminded of by reading this rule is that oh wow, I lost it. That's okay. Triumph loves the relentless. Yes, your biggest challenge is always going to come right before your biggest achievement. Understand that, and you are going to grow. For me, it always happens. Always. It's crazy. I can't quite think of an example right now. No, actually I can. So I was going through grad school, right? First couple of years I was still doing drugs and being a piece of garbage, really. And it was affecting my art making, or it was affecting my ability to conceptualize my art making. And so we had to have these semester reviews where we have to present the work that we've made, talk about it, and then we have like 30, 40 teachers of art historians, artists, tenure track, tenure professors, deans, all these people will just rattle off questions. And you got to know everything. You got to know every single thing. And I failed my first review. Second review, I passed. Third review, I failed and had to redo. And then the last review that I had with my 5-teacher committee before my last semester of grad school, right? So it's December. I'm presenting my work to my committee. I've made about 40, 50 pieces. I traveled to and from Alabama to Pennsylvania 3 times to fire these wood kilns. And so I drove 30, 60, I drove 90 hours, 4,000 miles. I did all this crap, and then I have my review the December before my last semester of grad school. My thesis show that needs to be filled with artwork. I need to have a 15-page paper written about it, or a 20-page paper written about it. And I get to December, I show them the work that I made after driving all that time, and they tell me I need to scrap all of it and start over. 4 months before my final thesis show in grad school, and they tell me I had to scrap everything and start over. And I ended up being fine. I went crazy that last semester. I passed my reviews. I got my MFA. I graduated. But it's just like, at the time, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. I literally was standing there like they were talking to me, and I was just standing there like this, and then I just like stared at them for like a minute. I was like literally about to like wring their necks. It was crazy. But that's just what goes to show you that, I was being challenged, right? It was a trial. It was a trial by fire, and I passed. So understand that your biggest struggles are not means to failure. They're not telling you that you're not in the right space. They're not telling you that you don't deserve it, or that you don't have the skills or the wherewithal or the abilities or the knowledge to do it. It just means that you need to have that relentlessness. You got to be a little bit more relentless. You got to take that one failure and use that failure to grow like crazy. And it's that easy. It's that simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. So understanding that is really, really going to help you guys. Okay. So those are the 5 rules of gold. I want to thank you guys so much for hopping on the call with me today. It was, I felt like it was a good one. I really, really love this topic. And if you guys have any questions about them, feel free to throw them in the chat real quick, or message me on Discord. And I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Do something fun for yourself, but make sure you're still doing your morning routine. Okay. So thank you so much, guys. I love you guys. And I hope you have a fantastic day. All right. Take it easy. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah, it's good stuff. What was this? Tony, let's be willing to do today what others would do in order to have tomorrow. Okay, yeah, that's good stuff. See, Les Brown's a good one. I love that stuff. Awesome. Yeah, thank you, guys. You have a great day. Adios.